Regardless of when you last played The Witcher 3, Fyke Isle is almost certainly burned into your memory. It's one of the darkest, most quietly tragic locations in the entire game. But what often goes unaddressed is just how many layers feed into its story, layers that stretch far beyond Velen, the games, and even the Witcher universe. Fyke Isle is a crossroads where game lore, Sapkowski's novels, real medieval plague history, Eastern European legend, and genuine human tragedy all collide. My goal in this video is to bring all of those threads together into one clear, accessible story, while sharing the deep research process behind it. So with that, let's begin. This is the complete story of Fyke Isle. Fyke Isle sits alone in the middle of Lake Windermere between Oriton and Frischlow in central Velen. Remote, cut off from the mainland and surrounded by stagnant water, it's the kind of place you'd only reach if you're intentionally going there. And even from a distance, something feels wrong. The trees look sick, fog hangs low, necrophages swarm the shore, and above it all stands the broken silhouette of a tower, a dark beacon rising over a dead island. Long before you use Keira's lamp or step inside Alexander's lab, the geography itself tells you the truth. This place has been touched by tragedy. It isn't dead in a cold or quiet way, but in a feverish, restless way, like something is still gripping it. None of this is accidental. CD Projekt Red drew heavily from real historical imagery to make Fyke Isle feel this way, and those inspirations become clearer the deeper you go. Fyke Isle's darkness isn't only the result of what happened there. It's also drawn from real history and folklore. Underneath the fantasy, CDPR built this location using echoes from medieval plague culture, Eastern European legend, and centuries of superstition. During the Black Death, European cities desperately tried to slow the spread of infection by isolating the sick. Venice, for example, designated entire offshore islands as quarantine stations. Places like Lazaretto Vecchio, where plague victims were locked away, studied, and left to die far from the mainland. Physicians worked in isolation, often resorting to experimental or ethically questionable methods out of fear and necessity. Alexander's Tower mirrors this almost perfectly, a remote, windswept island cut off from society, turned into a living laboratory for a plague no one understood. But there's an even more direct influence, the legend of Prince Popil II. In Slavic folklore, Popil was a cruel ruler who hid in a tower on Lake Goplo after betraying his people. A swarm of rats chewed through the walls and devoured him alive, seen as divine punishment for his corruption. If that sounds familiar, it should. If it doesn't, don't worry. You're going to hear a story that sounds oddly similar very soon. It doesn't just feel like an old legend reborn, it is one. And finally, there's medieval superstition. For centuries, peasants feared alchemists, scholars, and physicians who isolated themselves to study disease. Rumors spread faster than truth, and people convinced themselves these scholars were hoarding cures, poisoning wells, or experimenting on the innocent. Alexander's secrecy, the prisoners he used as material, and the tower's isolation all tap into that collective memory. The peasants of Velen reacted exactly as people did during real plague outbreaks, with fear, suspicion, and ultimately a violent revolt. Fyke Isle is terrifying because it was pulled straight from human history. To understand Fyke Isle, we first have to understand the disaster that brought Alexander there, the Catriona Plague. In the Witcher's world, Catriona is essentially the bubonic plague, a fast-spreading disease that kills nearly everyone who contracts it. Physicians flee, villages empty, bodies pile up, and strangely enough, its arrival in the northern kingdoms is tied directly to Syria of all people. While fleeing NL across time and space, she briefly landed in a plague-stricken city in what was likely our own medieval Europe. Fleeing again, a few infected fleas clung to her clothing. Her next jump took her to a Nilfgaardian port. One flea hopped onto a sewer rat, the rat boarded a ship named Catriona, and the rest is history. Alexander was one of the few mages willing to confront the disease head-on. Remote, isolated, and already feared, Fyke Isle became his laboratory, perfect for studying something that could wipe out entire regions. But Alexander's work was monstrous. He experimented not just on rats, but on prisoners supplied by Lord Vserad. His journals refer to them not as patients, not even as subjects, but as material, sacrifices to be laid on the altar of learning. In his eyes, the brutality was justified. And yet, it's Alexander's research, his desperation to understand an unstoppable plague, that sets off the catastrophic chain of events that follow. When Nilfgaard's armies invaded Velen, nobles fled in every direction. Lord Vserad, the former master of Crow's Perch, was no exception. He grabbed his daughter Annabelle, his household, his valuables, and sailed across Lake Windermere, believing the tower on Fyke Isle would shelter them. But isolation doesn't save you during a crisis. It paints a target on your back. Rumors spread that Vserad had food and medicine locked away. Others claimed Alexander was poisoning the starving. The truth did not matter. Fear became rage, and rage became a mob. The peasants stormed the tower, not out of justice, but out of desperation, jealousy, and blind fury. I'll let Keira explain this further.
The curse is somehow linked to the tower where Vserad, the lord of these lands, took refuge when Nilfgaard invaded. Claims in the village are that peasants, desperate of hunger, sailed to Fyke Isle to beg for food. Met their end there. It was a massacre.
This is where Annabelle's tragedy begins. If you've played the game, you know how that goes. Annabelle's death at the jaws of Alexander's plague rats birthed the Pesta, a plague maiden, bound to the tower by fear, suffering, and betrayal. Her curse remains anchored not by magic, but by the broken promise of Graham, whose guilt and abandonment tied their spirits together until Geralt intervenes. It's the final echo of the Isle's tragedy, a human horror that became a ghost story. Fyke Isle is more than just a creepy tower or ghost story. It represents everything that makes The Witcher 3 unforgettable. It blends real plague history, Slavic folklore, political collapse, human tragedy, and the consequences of fear. The monsters on Fyke Isle aren't drowners, wraiths, or rats. The monster is panic. The monster is ignorance. The monster is desperation. And sometimes, it's even good intentions twisted by circumstance. Fyke Isle reminds us that during war, even the innocent suffer. Even the well-meaning make fatal mistakes, and even brilliance can lead to horror. It's one of the most cursed places in Velen, not because of magic, but because of the human heart. Thank you so much for watching this deep dive and joining me for this passion project. If you enjoyed it or want more Witcher lore, analysis, or history videos, consider liking and subscribing. And please let me know what lore topic or location you'd like to see next. Until then, feel free to join me on my journey to see one Witcher location every day until The Witcher 4 launches. I post a new video every day going to a location that you guys suggest. I hope to see you guys there, and again, thank you so much for watching.